Welcome to the deep dive.
Okay, let's jump right in today with, a massive contradiction. It really sits at the heart of this whole enterprise AI conversation right now.
Yeah, it's pretty stark when you look at it.
Companies, globally, have poured somewhere between, 30 and $40 billion into generative AI projects. That's a huge, almost transformative level of investment.
It is enormous, but then you look at the actual return on that capital, and the MIT NANDA 2025 report paints a really shocking picture.
Shocking how?
Well, 95% of those organizations are currently getting zero measurable return on that investment.
Zero.
Wow.
Okay, that figure alone should make every executive listening pause for a second.
Absolutely. And this massive gap creates what the report calls the GenAI divide.
The GenAI divide. Explain that a bit.
You've got this tiny group, maybe 5%, who are already seeing millions in real demonstrable business value. They've cracked it somehow.
And then there's everyone else. And then you've got the vast majority, the other 95%, basically stuck. They're running pilots, proofs of concept, things that just never seem to properly get off the ground.
Right. So our mission today really is to dive into this research. We want to try and figure out what specific decisions, what factors determine which side of that divide you, our listener, might land on.
And it's important to say up front, this isn't because companies are just ignoring AI.
No, definitely not.
Consumer tools, things like ChatGPT, Copilot, they're everywhere. The report says 40% of organizations have deployed them in some capacity.
That's the catch, isn't it?
Exactly. The sources are super clear on this. Those tools, they boost individual productivity, maybe help someone write an email faster, draft a memo.
Small ball stuff.
Right. They don't really move the needle on the big P&L performance metrics.
So the real failure point, the bottleneck, is with those more specialized enterprise-grade systems, the ones meant to automate core business processes.
That's it. 60% of companies evaluated those deeper, often custom solutions. But making the jump from pilot to actual production, that's where it falls apart.
Not badly.
Only 5%, just 5% of those evaluated systems actually made it into full production.
So a 95% failure rate for the stuff that's supposed to really matter.
That's what we're calling the pilot to production chasm. It's brutal.
Okay, but I have to push back a bit. That 95%, isn't some of that just, setting expectations too high? Or maybe the tech just isn't there yet for those tasks? Why do they fail so consistently?
That's a fair question. And it's not just about technical difficulty, though that plays a part. When the researchers really dug into why these pilots stalled, three main reasons kept coming up.
Which were?
First, the solutions often created brittle workflows. They broke easily if the real-world process wasn't exactly like the training data.
Okay, so not robust enough for messy reality.
Precisely. Second, they lacked contextual learning. They didn't really understand the nuances of the situation. And third, maybe most importantly, the systems just didn't align with how people actually work day to day. They felt clunky, out of place.
So if you look past the usual suspects, infrastructure issues, regulations, finding talent, the researchers really zeroed in on one core blocker for scaling these things. And that's learning.
That's the crux of it, learning. The vast majority of these custom AI systems out there today, they're basically static, like a snapshot in time. Meaning they don't really retain feedback from users, they don't adapt if the context changes, and they definitely don't get better over time like, say, a human colleague would.
Which leads to this really interesting paradox they found at the user level.
Yeah, this was fascinating.
When they asked users why the pilots failed, the number one reason cited was unwillingness to adopt new tools.
Right. Sounds straightforward. People just don't like change.
But wait, the second biggest reason was model output quality concerns. So hold on. We know 40% of knowledge workers are already using consumer AI tools personally and seemingly finding them useful. They are willing to adopt tools. So what's going on here?
That apparent contradiction, that's what uncovers what the report calls the shadow AI economy.
Shadow AI economy. Sounds intriguing.
It is. So while only 40% of companies officially bought, say, an enterprise ChatGPT license, workers from over 90% of companies reported regularly using personal AI tools, their own private ChatGPT, Claude, whatever, accounts for work tasks.
Wow. So almost everyone is using it, just unofficially.
Exactly. These individuals, these prosumers, as the report calls them.
Prosumers, professional consumers of AI.
Yeah, combining professional work with heavy consumer tool usage. They're proving they can cross the divide individually when they have tools that are flexible and responsive.
So the employee gets it to work fine on their own dime with their own tool, but when the company rolls out its own official custom solution,
It often falls short, especially when the stakes get high, when it's mission-critical work.
why then specifically?
It usually comes down to one thing: memory, or the lack of it.
Memory.
Think about the corporate lawyer example in the study. Using ChatGPT to draft a basic boilerplate contract. Great starting point, quick, easy.
Okay.
But for high-stakes negotiation, where knowing the client's history, their preferences, past sticking points, where that really matters, 90% of those lawyers switched back to relying purely on human expertise.
And the reason they gave.
Because the AI, quote, doesn't retain knowledge of client preferences or learn from previous edits. And, crucially, it repeats the same mistakes.
So it's forgetful. It doesn't learn session to session or case to case.
Exactly. The dividing line between a useful helper tool and something you'd trust for high-value decisions seems to be that ability to remember, adapt, and learn from experience. It's that learning gap, plain and simple.
The ad hoc personal tools forget everything once you close the window.
Right. But real enterprise work needs persistence. It needs a tool that learns alongside you, that understands the context over time. And that's exactly what 95% of these current custom systems just aren't delivering.
Okay, that makes sense. So if the core user problem is this learning gap, where is all that investment, that $30–40 billion actually going at the industry level? Is it just hitting the wrong targets?
Well, if you zoom out and look at the whole economy, despite all the hype, the actual structural disruption from AI is surprisingly limited so far.
Really? You wouldn't think so from the headlines.
I know, right? But the data shows only two major sectors, technology and media and telecom, are showing clear signs of, fundamental transformation driven by AI.
And the others?
7 other huge sectors. Think financial services, healthcare, energy, manufacturing. They show lots of experimentation, lots of pilots, but very little fundamental change to how they operate or their cost structures.
Okay, so why is that? The research points to investment bias. Right. The money's going to the wrong places.
Yeah. That seems to be a big part of it. The budget allocation is heavily skewed toward the front office.
Meaning sales and marketing.
Yep. Sales and marketing functions grab about 70% of the typical AI budget.
70%. Why so much there?
Honestly, it's not necessarily because that's where the biggest value is. It's more because the metrics are just easier to track and attribute.
Like what?
Things like demo volume, lead response times, click-through rates. They're relatively easy numbers to measure and put in a report for the board. They look good, even if the underlying impact isn't huge. Vanity metrics, sometimes.
Okay, so where is the hidden ROI then? Where's the real transformative value hiding?
According to the research, it's often buried in the back office. Finance, procurement, operations, HR.
The less glamorous stuff.
Exactly. But that's where you find opportunities for really dramatic, sustainable cost savings. The problem is institutional resistance.
How so?
Well, one VP of procurement summed it up pretty well in an interview. They said something like, it's just really hard to get budget approval for a back office tool that isn't seen as directly moving top-line revenue.
Right, the classic cost center versus profit center battle.
And that's the trap that keeps that 95% stuck. They chase the easy-to-measure front office tweaks.
So the 5% who are succeeding, what are they doing differently with their investments?
They're focusing squarely on those measurable back office cost reductions. They're targeting big, chunky operational expenses.
Like what kind of results are they seeing?
We're talking significant numbers, $2 to $10 million saved annually just by eliminating expensive business process outsourcing BPO contracts. Things like external customer service centers, document processing firms.
Okay, replacing external vendors.
Exactly. And they also reported about a 30% decrease in spending on external agencies like marketing or consulting firms by bringing some capabilities in-house powered by AI.
So the big win isn't necessarily about mass internal layoffs, which everyone fears.
No, not primarily. It's much more about replacing these huge, often inefficient external cost buckets. That's where the immediate tangible ROI is for most businesses right now.
Okay, so that's clear. Target the back office for cost savings. But how do you actually implement these AI solutions successfully there, given that 95% failure rate? Let's get into the playbook for the 5%. What are the strategies?
Okay, strategy 1 is fundamental, and it's about how you source the solution. The build versus buy decision.
Always a big one in IT.
And the data here is really striking. The success rate for pilots built using strategic partnerships, meaning working closely with specialized external vendors, was double.
Double.
Yeah, 66% of those partnership-driven pilots reached deployment. Compare that to pilots built primarily internally by the company's own team, only 33% made it.
Wow, that's a huge difference. So internal teams are struggling to build these effective systems.
It really suggests they are, particularly when it comes to embedding those crucial learning capabilities we talked about. The winning approach seems to be buying highly customized, learning-capable services, not trying to build the complex foundational AI from scratch yourself.
Okay, so partner strategically. What's strategy 2?
It's about the mindset of the buyer, how they approach that partnership.
How so?
Successful organizations treat their AI vendors less like you'd treat a standard SaaS software provider, just pay the license fee and hope it works.
Right.
Instead, they treat them more like strategic BPO partners. They demand deep customizations specific to their workflows. They hold the vendor accountable for achieving real operational outcomes, lower costs, faster processing, not just hitting some abstract model performance benchmark.
So outcome-based accountability.
Exactly. And they partner through the inevitable early bumps and failures. They see it as buying an operational result, a capability, not just buying a piece of software off the shelf.
Which brings us right back to the core problem, the learning gap. Strategy 3 must be about tackling that head-on.
Precisely. The successful approach focuses explicitly on solving that learning problem. And the report highlights the concept of agentic AI as the key enabler here.
Agentic AI. Okay, break that down. What does that mean in practice?
Think of agentic AI as systems that have persistent memory and can learn iteratively. Crucially, they can also plan, execute tasks, and even course-correct autonomously to some degree. They don't need constant human hand-holding for every single step.
More independent then?
Much more. They often use these newer architectural frameworks. You might hear acronyms like NANDA, MCP, or A2A. These are essentially blueprints for building AI that can manage complex sequences of actions.
Right, so these architectures allow the AI to string tasks together, remember what it did in step 1 when it gets to step 5, and basically orchestrate a whole workflow without forgetting context.
You got it. They directly address that need for memory and adaptability that the lawyer in the example was missing. They enable that autonomous orchestration of complex multi-step processes.
Okay, so you need to find vendors offering these agentic learning systems. When executives are vetting these potential partners, what are they prioritizing? What are the top selection criteria for the successful buyers?
It's actually pretty straightforward, but tells you a lot. Number 1, by far the highest priority, a vendor they trust.
Trust. Interesting. Not tech specs first.
Trust first. Number 2 was a deep understanding of their specific workflow, real domain expertise from the vendor. And number 3 was the system's ability to improve over time. Basically, can it actually learn from feedback?
So, trust, workflow understanding, and learning capability.
That seems to be the recipe for finding the right partner and crossing that GenAI divide.
Okay, this paints a much clearer picture. Let's recap the key takeaways for you, the listener, especially if you feel like you might be stuck on the wrong side of that divide right now.
First, stop pouring money into static tools. The ones that need constant human oversight and don't really learn aren't going to deliver transformative value.
Second, partner up. Find vendors offering these learning-capable agentic systems and make sure they customize them deeply for your specific back-office processes where the big savings are.
And third, don't try to control everything from a central ivory tower. Empower your frontline managers, those prosumers who are probably already using AI effectively on their own. Give them the tools and the accountability. Workflow fit and user adoption are key.
Good summary. Now, there's a final, quite critical insight from the research regarding timing.
Yes, this is important. The window for effectively crossing this GenAI divide, it seems to be closing and maybe faster than people realize.
Why is that?
Because those successful early adopters, the 5%, are starting to lock in relationships with these advanced learning-capable vendors. And once an AI system has been learning from your unique operational data and workflows for, say, 6 months a year,
The switching costs get really high.
exactly. They compound month by month. The system gets smarter about your business. Moving to a new vendor means starting that learning process all over again. The report suggests there is maybe an 18-month horizon here before these foundational vendor choices become very difficult, very expensive to reverse.
So the message is, act now or risk getting locked out or locked in with inferior tech.
That's the strong implication, yes. The time for prolonged experimentation might be ending. Strategic decisions are needed soon.
Which leads perfectly into our final provocative thought for today. Looking beyond just internal systems, the report hints at something bigger: the agentic web.
Right. This is the idea that the future isn't just AI agents working inside your company walls. It's about autonomous systems that can discover, negotiate, and coordinate tasks with other systems across the public internet using shared protocols.
So instead of static websites or monolithic apps, you'd have this dynamic web of interacting, intelligent agents.
Potentially, yes. A shift from applications to protocols, from static destinations to dynamic coordination. It's a profound shift in how digital infrastructure might work.
So the final question for you, the listener, to ponder is this. As this agentic web starts to emerge, will your organization be one of the architects actively building and shaping this new infrastructure? Or will you simply be a passive entity waiting to be discovered and integrated by it? Something to think about.